and welcome to Live Oak Unitarian Universalist Congregation. I'm Bea Hamlin, and I serve as a member of Live Oak's Board of Trustees. This morning, Worship Associate Drew Carter will join our guest speaker, Reverend Lee Marie Sanchez, in leading our worship service. Reverend Lee Marie Sanchez has been a religious professional for over 21 years, serving 4 congregations and 2 hospitals in her ministry. She began as a director of religious education in Washington State, attended Meadville Lombard Theological School in Chicago, was a hospice and hospital chaplain, a religious education consultant, and has served 2 congregations as parish minister. Reverend Lee Marie is now doing what she loves for our faith, officiating at rites of passage and preaching. As of this morning, she's happy to preach in the church of her longtime friend and colleague, Reverend Tamara, and today brings the number of Unitarian Universalist churches where she has preached to a grand total of 52. We're so glad that you're with us this morning. In this religious community, we welcome all. Our generations join together to nurture spiritual growth and personal transformation, that we may be inspired to transform the world with love, hope, compassion, and justice. After worshiping together, we make time for coffee, tea, and conversation on the patio, if it's not raining. I don't know where we'll be if it's raining hard. I kind of hope it will be raining hard. And we take the opportunity to reach out to new acquaintances and to welcome new seekers in our midst. Today there will be a town hall meeting here in the sanctuary at 11:30. Everyone is encouraged to read our weekly Acorn Bulletin, which highlights the many ways that we create fellowship and put our values into action. Let us begin worship.
All to worship this morning are often attributed to Nelson Mandela, but he actually learned them from Marianne Williamson. Our deepest fear is that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond our means. It is our light, not our darkness, which frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, famous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine, as children do. We are born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not in just some of us, it's in everyone. Are we, as we let our light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others.
Two. Can you share these? Hi, Henry. Thanks, Laura. There's enough for everybody. Can you move that off? Thanks, guys. It's okay. You'll be able to see that. Nate, can you have a seat too? Good morning, everybody. All right, so this morning we're going to read a story about a bear named Henry. And it's really not about a bear, but it's about a man named Henry and his life. And he was born about 200 years ago. And I would say that what he really cared most about was he wanted people to be free. And what's one of the ways that people are least free? What is something that can happen? What is it?
Slaves.
Slavery, exactly, thank you. He cared a lot about that, and he spoke out against that. And so let's read the story. Henry climbs a mountain. Henry wanted to climb a mountain, but he had only one shoe. His other shoe was at the shoemaker's being fixed. I'll get it on my way, he thought. But on his way to the shoemaker's shop, Henry was stopped by Sam, the tax collector. Henry, he said, you haven't paid your taxes. Pay a state that lets farmers own slaves? Never, said Henry. You'll have to pay or go to jail, Sam said. Then take me to jail, said Henry, and Sam did. He put his bare foot against the wall. I wish I had my other shoe, Henry thought. He took crayons from his pocket and drew a shoe on the white wall. Beside the shoe, he drew a flower with a hummingbird on it. Next, Henry drew the tree the hummingbird lived in. Under the tree, he drew a path that crossed a river and climbed a mountain. Henry got his shoes wet. As he drew up the wall, he sang a song. The bear goes over the mountain, the bear goes over the mountain, the bear goes over the mountain to see what he can see. Henry climbed up waterfalls, he marched in and out of clouds. When it started to rain, Henry pulled his hat down and put on his coat. He drew a hawk soaring in the clouds on the ceiling. At the top of the mountain, Henry met a traveler coming up the other side. He was singing this song. The other side of the mountain, the other side of the mountain, the other side of the mountain will set me free at last. Henry and the traveler sat together on the mountaintop. They talked and laughed and sang more songs. You have no shoes, said Henry. Are you walking far? As far as the star in the north, the traveler said. That's a long way, said Henry. Take my shoes. The traveler put on Henry's shoes. He stood and waved. Thank you, friend, he called. Henry started back down the mountain. The path went down and down again over sharp rocks that hurt his feet. He tripped over tree roots and logs in the path. Ouch, said Henry. Once he caught his foot in a rabbit hole. Henry rolled down the last hill and splashed across a river. He had not slept all night. The sun was coming up when he stumbled into the small room. Just then, the door opened. It was Sam. Someone has paid your taxes, Henry, Sam said. How does it feel to be free? Henry smiled. It feels like being on top of a very tall mountain, he said. And he walked to the shoemaker's shop to buy a new pair of shoes. All right, let's send the children out to this little line.
We now enter into a time of meditation, prayer, or reflection, each according to our own practices. This will be a two-part meditation, and you will see why later in the sermon. First of all, I want you to bring to mind something which you don't like at all. In fact, you might find this thing rather off-putting, uncomfortable, or even icky. Now close your eyes for a moment and feel just where the icky is in your body. Perhaps it feels like a weight on your shoulders. Your face feels it as a frown. For me, it is a shrinking away feeling accompanied by a knot in my stomach. Now, bring to mind something you really enjoy doing, whether that be gardening or dancing, completing some kind of work, being with friends, or enjoying a solitary moment with a book. Where and how do you feel this enjoyment in your body? As for me, I feel lighter, more open, my shoulders back, a smile on my face. If you have not closed your eyes already, please do so, or you may just gaze at the soft glow of the light of our chalice. Take a deep breath in and let it out long. Let's do that one more time. Another deep breath in, and let it out long. Now you're invited to go to that place and that time, that enjoyment which pleases you. Let your body feel the pleasantness of the beautiful moment. You may find that if you place your tongue up on the roof of your mouth against your front teeth, that your face will actually soften. Let your eyes soften. Feel the tension melting away from your head, down your shoulders, down your arms, moving out from your torso, down your legs, leaving your feet, exiting your toes. Now let us sit silently in this space made holy just by our being together, breathing in and breathing out your own natural breath. And remember, you are loved right here and right now. So let's enjoy the silence for a few moments. When you are ready, you may open your eyes if you've closed them. Slowly come back into the room where we will all be together and we'll sing together. Always nice to be with a room of native speakers. Thank you, that was beautiful. Thank you so much. First story. Nothing ever went right for Betty. She spent her childhood in a family that was fraught with buried feelings and poor communication. As a result, she had a hard time establishing relationships. From adolescence onward, she only had a few friends. Her sole serious romance with a self-proclaimed emotionally disturbed young man. They broke up at a particularly vulnerable time in Betty's life, just as she was entering college. Betty was totally unprepared for the financial responsibilities of adult life. She scraped by, but she never managed to put any money into her savings or buy the condo that she desperately wanted. Her life had been one long run of hardship and bad luck. Second story. Molly, on the other hand, had a pretty good life. Her family was comfortably well off, and her parents cared deeply about their daughter's happiness. Molly was so bright that she intimidated her peers. But the friends that she did make were fascinating people who adored her. She had a fling with an intense young poet, broke it off when she moved to a different state and had many other suitors. Clearly, Molly had a much better life than Betty, or she would have, except for the fact that Betty and Molly are the same person. Each had chosen which elements in her life to put down or to lift up. These two stories are recounted in a book called Finding Your North Star, written by life coach Martha Beck. It's been said about Martha Beck that her magic trick is turning people towards their true selves. Several years ago, one of my ministerial colleagues suggested I read this book, Finding Your Own North Star. He said it changed his life. And I paid attention because this man is a very well-known and accomplished Unitarian Universalist minister, highly successful. I purchased the book and then I added it to one of those, growing stacks of books that are sitting next to your bedside that you don't always get around to and never even open sometimes. Until one day it seemed like the book was calling to me, "Hey, look at me now." Well, I picked it up and I found the book was filled with various forms of self-analysis, which are to assist one in finding, one's own North Star. One which for you, your passion, is your guiding light. Now, as the stories of Betty and Molly, one and the same person but vastly different, point out in further examination that we each choose how we are going to write our own autobiographical narrative. How we each choose to understand who we are gives us some clues about how we choose to order the priorities in our lives. A life coach sometimes helps a person rewrite their life story, choosing what to include and what to exclude, thereby coming to see their life as a comedy, or a tragedy, or a romance, or an action-filled adventure. We learn it's possible to spin our own story, like politicians do, toward a miserable or a cheerful direction. I'm sure that many of you know lots of people who've been challenged with numerous personal tragedies, who are still healthy and happy, loving individuals. And most likely you know people who seem to wring the worst out of every situation, wearing everyone down around them with their tales of woe and victimization. And you might even be one of these, either one, sometimes one and sometimes the other. Martha Beck, the life coach, does not suggest that you deny pain and misfortune. No, because you've endured them in your life. What she suggests is that you rewrite the story yourself, with you as the hero. From there, you can more readily choose your life's priorities as you make your way to that guiding light, your North Star. First, she recommends writing a brief outline of the major events of your life. Then, see if you've written a sad story or a happy story. After that, you get to rewrite it in a way that shows you you're a helpless victim. But finally, tell your story as an adventure saga, filled with exciting and challenging events over which you have great power, personal power and mastery over your circumstances. Now, granted, this may not be very easy, so she has ideas on how to prepare yourself to write. She says seek out media projects and products like movies and books and articles, magazines, which demonstrate people's heroic journeys that you want to emulate. For example, right now I'm reading a fascinating book about Margaret Fuller, transcendentalist cohort of Emerson's and Thoreau, who you heard about this morning, one of our first real feminists of the 18th century. Now, after you've written your story, you're the victim and now you're the hero, share your newly revised power story with a few good folks Choose carefully the people that will love you and encourage you the most. Now, hang out with a tribe that supports you, like a Unitarian Universalist congregation, I would recommend, and spend as little time as possible with those people who do not love and support you. Healthy detachment is a good thing. Remember the children's game, you're getting warmer, you're getting colder, goes something like this. A child hides something and you must find it, but you need help. When you get closer to the hidden object, the kids around you say, you're getting warmer. And when you get farther away, the kids say, you're getting colder, and so forth and so on until you find the object. Let's connect that to the meditation we did this morning. Remembering how you felt in your body when you were thinking about something icky, and then how you felt in your body when you were thinking of something that you enjoyed. Very different. Molly and Betty, Betty and Molly. I'll be honest, I've only read about half of Martha Beck's book, because that happens a lot. I don't know if it happens to you. We read and then we maybe read the last chapter, the last page, and think we're going to get back to it. And seems like there's always a companion piece that shows up to the thing that I'm reading. It's almost like a miracle. I'm like, oh my gosh, now that book is calling to me. Joseph Campbell says, where you stumble, there lies your treasure, as Grace would have it. So what showed up for me was The Last Lecture by Randy Pausch. Again, I had already read this book somewhat, but suddenly it was calling to me. Come on, read me now. Okay. In fact, it seemed to reach out and hold hands with Finding Your Own North Star. These were these two books sitting there on my bedstand. Apparently, I needed to read that one too. Martha Beck says you can play the warmer, colder children's game anytime by noticing when you are moving away from something you love and when you are moving towards something that makes you feel icky. When you're spending time with what you love, truly important. You can feel your healthy body. So I've been doing this lately. So there was that book, and I'm feeling pulled to that. Because my mantra lately has been, I want to be happy. It's good for my health. Randy Pausch. He was an American professor of computer science and a human-computer interaction and designer at Carnegie Mellon University. He was diagnosed with terminal pancreatic cancer at age 48. He was given only 3 to 6 months to live. He was married, and he had 3 young children. And he had an incredibly successful life and career. Carnegie Mellon had a tradition for many years to invite selected professors to offer reflections on their personal and professional journeys. Each of these reflections were to be called The Last Lecture. Randy Pausch had applied, and he had been selected. Only then did he learn of his terminal diagnosis. 1 year later, living past that original projection, he gave an unbelievably upbeat lecture which became not only popular on YouTube as video, but led to many other appearances and a New York Times best-selling book called The Last Lecture, Really Achieving Your Childhood Dreams. As a child, Pausch had a list of childhood dreams. They were being in zero gravity, playing in the NFL, authoring an article in World Book Encyclopedia, my favorite, being Captain Kirk from Star Trek. There's probably a few Trekkies in here. Winning the largest stuffed animal at the fair, and being a Disney Imagineer. Amazingly enough, he managed to achieve most of his dreams, except for the one about playing in the NFL. But as he chronicles his achievements in a very warm and funny and inviting style, it's obvious that, as he says, we cannot change the cards we are dealt, just how we play our hand. Here are some of the anecdotes from each of those achievements. authoring an article in the World Book Encyclopedia. He had dreamed of doing this since he was a child, but as he found out, you just can't call the World Book and say, I'd like to write an article for you. The World Book has to come to you. But interestingly enough, they did. And he learned that no editor ever questioned what I wrote. But I have to assume that's the World Book's way. They pick an expert and trust the expert won't abuse the privilege. Being Captain Kirk. Pausch invited William Shatner to visit his college class, where they had designed and assembled a virtual reality world that resembled the bridge of the Starship Enterprise. They even had a surprise for Shatner, too. Red alert sirens. Do you remember those? Without missing a beat, Shatner said, "We're under attack." Being in zero gravity. This dream became a possibility because when he learned that NASA had a program for college students, he found out that, however, unfortunately, that faculty members could fly with their students. At first, he was heartbroken when he thought he might not be able to fly. But then he encountered the media and said he would offer them publicity. So in the end, he and his students did get a chance to fly in space. And he said, here's the lesson. Have something to bring to the table because that'll always make you more welcome. Playing in the NFL. He doesn't actually get to have this dream come true, but he did have a high school coach that worked him really hard, helping him realize that if I work hard enough, there will be things that I can do tomorrow that I can't do today. And that was enough. When a colleague of Pausch later mentioned that Shatner, who had stayed for more than 3 hours in that classroom, just kept asking questions and asking questions, and the guy remarked, he doesn't get it. Well, Pausch disagreed. He was hugely impressed with Shatner because he said Shatner was the ultimate example of a man who knew what he didn't know about what he didn't know and was perfectly willing to admit it. He didn't want to leave that classroom until he felt like he had the beginning of an understanding. Pausch said, that's a hero to me. I wish every grad student had the same attitude. Winning the largest stuffed animal at the fair. When he was a kid, Pausch thought that the guy with the biggest stuffed animal at the fair was the coolest guy there. So for years, he played the fair games and he kept coming home with larger and larger stuffed animals. He said he never paid for one, but he never cheated. But this is the kicker. I also did not want anyone to know just how long it took me to be successful. Tenacity is a virtue, but is not always crucial for everyone to observe how long and how hard you work at anything. And that works for me. Being a Disney Imagineer. Because of his successful work in virtual reality, he was able, after being passed over and passed over and passed over multiple times, he snagged an interim position during a 6-month sabbatical from Carnegie Mellon, where he was working on the top secret Aladdin film and the theme park Aladdin ride, which would allow people to feel like they were riding on a flying magic carpet. Pausch likes to quote one of his life heroes, Walt Disney, as saying, if you can dream it, you can do it. He also mentioned the interesting way in which Disneyland spins some reality, and I'm going to pay attention to this next time I go to Disneyland. They instruct the employees at Disneyland when they're asked the question, when does the park close? The employees to say, the park is open until 8. You see how they spun that? So in other words, you could turn a negative into a positive. In 2007, Pausch gave a lecture on time management, quite a long and complicated program about how to manage your time. But I like to say what he said in his book for lay folks like you and like me. Time must be managed, explicitly managed like money. He urged his grad students not to invest time on irrelevant details. It doesn't matter how well you polish the underside of a banister. You can always change your plan, but you've got to have a plan in the first place. He was a big believer in to-do lists, breaking life into small steps, doing one thing at a time. Ask yourself, are you spending your time on the right things? Are your life causes, your goals, your interests even worth pursuing? He says, develop a good filing system. Much to his wife's consternation, he filed everything in the house in alphabetical order. And he said it was better than running around, I know it was blue and I was eating something when I had it. I think he had my office in mind. He said, rethink your telephone. Keep calls short by standing up and hanging up on telemarketers. And when you call people, call them at 11:55, right before their lunch hour. And to delegate, he said he learned only as a professor to trust his 19-year-old students with keys to the kingdom. Better for them, better for him. And take time out, because time is all you have. And you may find one day that time has run out much more faster than you think it would. Randy Pausch died of complications on July 25, 2008, 2 years after his diagnosis. He became a Unitarian Universalist only a year before that, when he was 47 years old. When asked why he was attracted to Unitarian Universalism, he said it appealed to his reason and his thought more than dogma. He also said the community was important and that the UU congregation in Pittsburgh was supportive all the way through his illness. Brought meals, helped the kids, kept their spirits up, and as he said, we are all going to die. It is up to each of us to choose how it is we are to live. And my very successful colleague that I mentioned to you earlier shifted his course so dramatically that he decided to recommend the book, Your North Star, Finding Your North Star, and darned if he didn't do it. I won't tell you who he is, because he's famous, and he inspired me to finish the book. You know, I could hear my 2 books talking to each other at night on the coffee table. Star said last, good advice there. Pick your priorities, and then you'll be traveling north. Last replied, well, Star, I really love this line by Carl Jung. Carl Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Amen. Amen. Blessed be. Namaste.